Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Season 6, Episode 5 of Mindclickers, where it's time to click both heads in 2025. Today, I am incredibly excited to be joined by one of the best and sharpest minds in the world of Geoguessr, zi8gzag, professional Geoguessr player and top-tier content creator. From guessing countries in under a second to breaking down regional clues, zi8gzag's carved a name out for himself in the rapidly growing world of Geoguessr esports. In this episode, we'll dive into the cognitive skills behind elite level play, the rise of competitive Geoguessr, and how he balances competition with building a thriving YouTube presence. Whether it's esports, geography, or content creation, this is an episode going to be packed with insights, definitely not one to miss. Oscar, how you going, brother?
Yeah, Lachlan, great to be here. Thanks so much for having me. Having a good day today. Kind of just chilling. So yeah, looking forward to getting to the questions.
Legendary. Love it, mate. I think this is one that I've been really keen for because I've had previously a lot of pro experience in so many games. So Rocket League, CS, Valorant, Apex, COD, the list sort of goes on. But GeoGuessr is one that I've played in the background, played at majors and stuff like that, but have forever been really interested and curious about. So really keen to unpack, I guess, your mindset towards GeoGuessr and everything about it. So I guess taking us back, where did the journey begin? How did you get into, I guess, geography? How did you get into GeoGuessr? And, take us back a few steps.
Yeah, well, I've always been interested in geography right from when I was a kid, like flags and countries. There's always been an interest of mine. And I think that's pretty common amongst pro players. Some of them came into the game through being geography nerds. I wouldn't say that's me as much, but everyone's at least got that interest, the base level interest, I would say. It's a rare player. There are a couple of players who I can think of who actually don't care, which I always find pretty interesting. But for the most part, you're either dealing with super nerds or at least, moderate nerds. And I would say like I was kind of a moderate geography nerd.
Yeah.
And then I ended up discovering the game at high school where in like just after the game came out, maybe 2014-ish, 2015 maybe, we got shown the game at high school, and I remember playing it in geography class. It was fun, but I was nothing special at it by any means. I mean, no one starts off good in Geoguessr, so that's just the fact of the matter. Unless you've been to every country, and even then, you can't really start off that. Even I think even if you had been to every country, you would still very much struggle to begin with. And so yeah. Played the game, rediscovered it when Geoguessr, this British YouTuber who I'm sure many viewers, listeners have heard of, I rediscovered it through him, maybe 2018-19, and I was like, "Whoa, this is insane!" Like he's guessing Eswatini correctly based off what? Like I just couldn't understand, and I was like, "That's something I would like to learn."
Yeah.
Then I ended up playing it a little bit with my ex-girlfriend, and I got her a subscription for her birthday because Geoguessr was behind a paywall, and I was like, "Oh, that's a good birthday present." And then I was like, "Oh, can I borrow the account?" So, funnily enough, I'm still I'm still playing on her old account today. I got the email changed and everything, but it's pretty funny the way that panned out. But
Yeah.
yeah, so then I just started playing a lot, got into the game, started playing like daily, and just realized I have like a real affinity for it. And I don't think I would have gone on to like be such a solid player if I didn't start a YouTube channel. But I was like, I'm good enough to start a YouTube channel. Which is kind of delusional at the time. I wasn't very good at all, but
Yeah.
I did that, and I just kind of consistently started posting.
Love that. That's kind of crazy. I've definitely spoken with a few, I guess, previous content creators who started off sort of just with a passion to the game, getting interested, and then sort of thinking, oh, maybe I'll make some content on it. Maybe I'll make some YouTube clips or TikToks, whatever it be. And then, yeah, finding them way into the pro scene, which I think is pretty special.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I surveyed the kind of YouTube landscape that was going around at the time, and I wasn't entirely impressed, I guess. Like, no
Yeah.
offense to everyone who was creating videos at that stage, but I just don't think anyone really was like engaging and good. And I guess I probably started off as neither, but like I at least saw that there was the potential to grow into that, and I think I eventually did. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. What was the ticking stone that I guess looking back was the pathway is like, hang on, I'm actually pretty good at this. Maybe I can start actively looking towards pushing towards really high competitive levels.
Mm. Good question. Like because you have to remember with my story in GeoGuessr, like the GeoGuessr pro scene didn't exist when I started playing. Basically, the entirety of like GeoGuessr competition happened on Reddit,
Yeah.
and that was kind of just like weekly competitions for fun, and no one was particularly good.
Yeah.
The thing was though that like relatively soon after I started playing, a year and a bit after I started playing, Rainbow had his blow up on TikTok, and he started hosting tournaments. And, you know, the pro scene kind of started to develop. There was a bit of a pro scene. There were pro players beforehand. For example, Radu, who's still, you know, a top 5 player in the world right now, if not top 3, if not top 1, depending on who you want to ask. He was around and very good at that stage as well. There were players like that who had a pretty good level, but there was just there was no avenue for like showing that off or anything. So I just say that because like at the start, you know, like considering myself good or something, it wasn't really a big consideration. Like, yeah, some people were good, but like, it just didn't matter in the same way. I was just more interested in the game, rather than having any sort of esports on my radar, is what I want to say. So I guess to answer your question though, I guess like maybe in 2022, after the tournament's been running for a while, I could feel myself kind of getting better, and I was like, nah. I got back from a holiday where I just watched the tournaments. I'd normally been playing, and I was just watching, and I was like, nah, I actually got to get good. So I think like around late 2022, early 2023 is when I kind of stepped up to becoming a top 50, top 30 player in the world.
Okay, I love that. What is the pathway, I guess, in Australia, or I guess competing from a LAN perspective? I guess finding a way to LAN. I guess in Rocket League, it's having regional events, and then the top 2 in OCE go on to play internationally. What is that like for a Geoguessr?
So Geoguessr is split into 3 regions. There's the EMEA, APAC, and the Americas. And so for APAC, Asia Pacific, it is basically just including all the countries you'd expect.
Yeah.
And there are how many slots? I think so. They've implemented this World League system where I believe APAC gets 10 slots. And with a maximum of 4 per country. So the maximum of 4 Aussies could be through to the or could be compete in this. So we had 4 of us, and we didn't do too badly. We have one Australian in the World Cup this year, and 3 of us who were kind of close to getting there. One New Zealander as well. So yeah, that's kind of it. You have to go through the qualifier, then you have to play inside the World League, which like gives you a certain amount of points, and then you go to LAN.
Right.
And that's where like the LAN actually you could theoretically get through to the World Cup without having any LAN success,
Right.
with enough points in the World League. But I needed to at least win 1 game on LAN, and I didn't. So that's why I missed out on the World Cup by 1 position this year. I was 14th in the world. You needed to be top 13.
Oh, damn, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of unfortunate that, but happens.
Yeah. So does the next, I guess, season roll around next year then? Or I guess the next opportunity to go back to LAN?
Yeah, next opportunity to go back to LAN. I think they started the World League in November this year, so I guess it would probably start at a similar time next year.
Yeah.
But every season of Geoguessr competition has been so different to the last that I wouldn't even want to like put a date on it. It's probably just gonna be different next year.
Yeah, love that. Interesting. Is it ran by Geoguessr as a whole? Because obviously there's different tournament organizers in different games like ESL, Epic, Blast. Is Geoguessr the ones that actually host and do all the TO?
Yeah, so they do it entirely. Even for the last World Cup, I don't even think there was like a major sponsor. They basically did it entirely themselves, and that's why I think it's important. Like, I have like a bit of like this perception of Geoguessr esports that it is largely advertising for Geoguessr, which is fair enough. I mean, they're a company, they're paying for everything to happen.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's good to like view Geoguessr esports through that lens. Like the main impetus behind the whole thing is them putting the game out there. And so it's good to like view like the esports through that lens, I would say. So yeah, I guess it's kind of more like that. Geoguessr is like the entirely decision-making body. All the rules and stuff, all the format decisions are up to them. They don't really listen to pro player input too much.
Right, okay.
For example, pros would really like the current format includes, so for viewers at home, there's the moving format where you're allowed to like walk down the street and look for information. There's the no move where you're going to get a 360-degree view, and there's the still image and NPZ.
Yep.
And amongst pro players, I would say amongst the kind of English speaking mainstream like contingency of the community who plays pro play, they're much more interested in the no moving format and the NMPZ format, the moving format, is kind of like an afterthought. There are certain pros who are really into it and really good at it. For example, world champion Blinky is the best moving player in the world, but most pros, I would say, don't really like go after the moving mode so much, and yet it's the most important, objectively speaking, in the format, the most important mode. I don't play it. I don't practice it. I should practice it, but I just hate it, so I just don't. Like it's like some people see that as like selfish or like no, maybe not selfish, but just like me being hard-headed and stubborn and stuff, which is true. But like I just don't like it. Like at some point you just gotta, because I'm doing content as well. At some point you just gotta, and we'll get into that later, no doubt. But at some point you just gotta make a decision for yourself, and yeah. So yeah, but I think if it was like a community-run thing, or if maybe like an org, or not an org, like a TO was like in charge of it, I think probably you would see moving be separated because it is so different to the other modes. Whereas because it's more of like a thing that's meant to be accessible for everyone, run by Geoguessr, you end up with this kind of mutant format, which just kind of shows everything and puts like the game mode that everyone starts off playing, because most people. I mean, I didn't start off playing moving because I always hated it, but like most people who come to the game start off by, okay, let's go down the road, let's find some signs, whatever. That's the kind of the easiest to digest, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. I think I definitely started off playing moving just to sort of understand what was going on. I think most players that I know did that. But yeah, interesting you have like more of a facet in terms of, I guess, where you want to spend most of the time practicing game modes. I think that's really interesting. And I think it's quite different in terms of when you compare it to different esports. Like, I guess in Rocket League, there's specific things that we don't always do, but I guess that comes to bite us back sometimes. So I think it's interesting to sort of have that, I guess, different facet. And I think what you talked about, and I guess mentioned the whole fact that Geoguessr is sort of putting, I guess, esports as their sort of main thing. I think when I go on YouTube, I think back then, like, it got so many views, and I think that's what got me into Geoguessr originally, like having a look at the esports. It's really well driven in terms of the viewership and I guess how they set it up. So I think it makes sense for them to sort of have it like that.
I think it's been a really smart business move. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, one thing I'm really curious about, and I think I was chatting to a few of my other players the other day about this, in, I guess, OCE and this whole phenomenon of scrimming players and getting practice. So here in OCE, obviously, we scrim OCE teams, we practice against OCE teams, and then we go internationally to boot camp and, I guess, play against EU players, play against NA players. But I think the magical thing about Geoguessr is that you can realistically play against anyone, right? So does that mean when it comes down to practice, what does that look like for you in terms of, do you scrim other people? Do you have like, I'm going to sit down for an hour now, I'm going to scrim this one specific player, I'm going to get, I guess, how does that work for you?
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. Well, firstly, yeah, we are very lucky in Geoguessr. It's not a particularly ping-based game, so especially for no moving in NMPZ, there's literally no there's no drawbacks to playing with someone from the opposite side of the world. So that's great. So if I want to practice against Blinky, if I want to practice against Radu, the two best players in the world, I can easily do that. They're friends of mine. We can jump on as long as I'm up at the right time of day. It works. So that's obviously a really great way to practice. That being said, if you tune into my streams, I do majority of my practice on streams, although I've been kind of inactive at the moment because I'm eliminated from the World Cup, so I'm kind of just chilling out and playing other games. But if you tune into my streams when I'm practicing, you'll see I play a lot of solo games where I'm basically just sitting there grinding out solo stuff. Number one, there's a lot of dead time in like the 1v1 format where like, there's the time between the rounds and you only get to see so many rounds. And I think with Geoguessr, it's so much about repetition that I love to just like spam solo games so that I like have seen everything. It's kind of my strategy. But I think scrimming's just really on the uptick at the moment. Interestingly, it was not a way that a lot of people practiced beforehand, and now there's like dedicated servers for pros to like scrim against each other much more. So it's kind of a late development in a way. And I've never really thought about why that is, but yeah, I mean, obviously people have always been doing it. It's just like kind of picked up steam. There's more like centralized places for the best players to do pick up games against each other.
Yeah, no, interesting. I think that's, one of the biggest sort of things I was curious about because, being able to, I guess, practice and play against, some of the best in the world is a pretty great thing. But I think think that's the magical thing about Geoguessr as well, is because what you're seeing in front of you is factual. Like it's pretty much there and it's existing. And I guess it's up to you to then make the right decision, right? And I think that's what separates Geoguessr from so many other esports in that way. Maybe you can line it up with like something like chess, how it's like it's right in front of you, it's the most factual thing. But yeah, Geoguessr has that, I guess, magic about it.
Yeah, yeah, I think chess is an apt analogy. Like, I just find Geoguessr such an interesting esport because there's no mechanics involved. So the barrier to entry, as long as you have like a functioning mind and you can use a mouse, that's
Yeah.
pretty much all you need. Like you can have the worst reflexes. You could literally have the worst reflexes. You could, you could like barely, you could have like a tremor in your hand or whatever. Like it really
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Like it all goes in Geoguessr, which is very cool. But at the same time, it makes it very basic in a
Mm,
way. Like I'm a big fan of Counter-Strike esports. When you watch CS,
yeah.
like not only do you need the reflexes and the mind, but you also need the team play, the tactics. Like there's multiple layers of what you need to be a great Counter-Strike player,
Mm,
which I think like obviously as a viewer, if you played a bit yourself, you can really come to appreciate that. With GeoGuessr, I would say it's much more one-dimensional, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
yeah.
Um, but it's just so much about learning the information, so having a great memory and just like memorizing facts about all different kinds of things, and then also synthesizing the information, because many times you'll learn something and it'll be like, okay, well, sugarcane, for example, in Brazil is mostly grown in like 4 states out of the 30 states that they have or whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're going to see sugarcane randomly in another place. So it's about weighing the different variables
Mm,
and using the knowledge you have versus the kind of things you're not quite sure about in the round to get to the right answer. And this
yeah.
is why I like the still image mode the most, because I think it is the deepest game mode, just because you have like so much of weighing up and so much to do with so little information. Um, if I like moving, on the other hand, is very high skilled as well and does include more of like tactics,
Yeah.
which I do enjoy to watch the best moving players do, because there's a lot of decision making. You're
Mm,
moving down a road, you're like, okay, we're in Ukraine. The best things to look for in Ukraine are like billboards where they write the name of the city.
yeah.
But also, I could go for a road number, or I could just stand still and try and vibe out the round. So there's a lot of decision making and moving, which I think makes it also quite exciting if you're watching the highest level players.
Mm,
Watching me play moving is kind of boring because basically I'm always like trying to min max. Like I'm just basically trying to play it as a no moving game whenever I can, and then whenever I'm like forced to go find a sign because it's like obviously like 10 meters down the road, then I have to go and look at it.
yeah.
And then you just see me flail about because I don't know where the place is. But
Yeah.
yeah, basically, like I think moving and NMPZ have a lot of like really fun dynamics that make it a bit deeper. Whereas like the no movement mode is a bit more basic. It's more just about memorizing as much as you can, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. I love the comparative, the comparison that you made between, I guess, something like Counter Strike and something like Geoguessr, where in Counter Strike you've got four other boys next to you, right? So it's like a shared pressure, whereas in Geoguessr it's one on one, so it's a lot more internalized. I guess going to LAN for the first time, what was that like? I guess, or even just competing on regional events, having more internalized pressure in knowing that if you made the mistake, it's all on you. You can't really take that back.
So yeah, definitely competing as an individual is like pretty. It's pretty nerve-wracking, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I played my first LAN in Stockholm 2023, the first World Cup,
Hmm.
and this was actually done by invite. So I think there were 4 spots for quals,
Right.
and
Okay.
everything else was done by invite, one per country, basically the most famous player from each country.
Yeah.
So interestingly, for the US, you ended up with probably not like Jake, who was invited. There's another YouTuber just like me. We both got invited, even though we probably weren't both the best in the country at the stage. I was probably second best, but yeah, like the other guy kind of got snubbed just because I had a bigger name at the stage. So I was working full time at the time. I didn't have huge expectations coming in there. I just tried to practice, like cover some of my weaknesses.
Yeah.
And yeah, competing as an individual, I guess like it is like, I guess when you compete as an individual, it's so much harder to feel secure about a round. You're just
Mm,
always going to be like second guessing yourself. Like GeoGuessr, like it's great to watch. What I could say is like when you have a team in GeoGuessr, because people do play in teams historically, a lot of before it went online, a lot of stuff happened in team events, and
Yeah.
even still, like on Twitch streams, people will like play together to try and get high scores and stuff like that. And just even the ability to be like, oh, it's surely not Cambodia, right? And the other guy's like, yeah, no, it's Thailand, it's Thailand, it's Thailand. Like that kind of security that you get from like bouncing ideas off each other goes so far. It's
Yeah.
actually crazy. So when you're sitting there, you got to really like back yourself. And that's what I thought. That's why I like the kind of idea of like spamming games, because you just learn to back yourself more because you've seen more stuff. But it's nerve-wracking, especially like you have some countries where the difference between small details could put you thousands of kilometers away, and you just got to be so secure in yourself with that. Otherwise, you're gonna make a fool of yourself, and it feels terrible to go the
Yeah.
wrong side of Russia.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah, just like that internalized, I guess, coming from a place of intuition as well. But I guess, yeah, your approach towards spamming games definitely helps to, I guess, create repetitions, and I think provides you with the most exposure towards so many
Yeah,
different elements, which I think over time
yeah,
helps to build up, I guess, your mental template of being like, yep, these are the small things that I can pinpoint and recognize, which I guess by process of elimination allow you to sort of make a decision.
yeah.
In so many esports, we have, I guess, what's termed visual acquisition, and I guess visual acquisition development, which is where you can search on the screen to, I guess, pinpoint the most important bits of information. I guess when you look at GeoGuessr, being able to do that really fast and really quickly and effectively, I think is probably one of the most important traits, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, for example, in a moving game, it becomes much less important
Yeah.
because, well, actually, I'm going to take that back, because in a moving game, it's all about knowing where to find the information.
Yeah.
So you're going down the road, and as you're speeding down the road, you're looking for example, in the Philippines, you're
Mm.
looking for shop fronts because they write down the exact address you're at in the shop fronts a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But only certain kinds of shop fronts will have it. Like maybe like a corner store won't have it, but a bank will have it. So in that one, it's about one, knowing where you're going to find it, and two, being able to speedily identify it as you're zooming past.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect. Whereas in NMPZ, it's more about, okay, if you're trying to do like a 10-second guess, which some formats will do, in World Cup it's all 60 seconds, but in personal formats you might play like 1 second rounds, like 0.1 second to see the round, or you might play like 10-second blitz rounds, whatever.
Yeah.
And you gotta know, you gotta like look at the pole tops, you gotta look at like, there's certain things that will just give so much more information in a few pixels than the whole rest of the screen. Like, the whole right side of the screen might be like a wheat field, and
Yeah.
it's like, okay, whatever. But on the other side of the screen, you could have like one particular pole top, which has, a bit of paint on the pole, and then like a certain arrangement of the insulators on the top of the pole, which just like, okay, well, that means we have to be in, Manitoba in Canada, or whatever. So it's like, it's highly relevant where you place your eyes at the start of the round, and it's one of these things where getting an expertise in that has kind of opened my mind to like what it must be like to be like a biologist, or like a botanist, or like someone
Mm.
who builds bridges or something like that, because they see a plant or a cell or a bridge, and they see so much. They see exactly how it was made. They see exactly what makes it tick, whatever. That's how I feel with like looking at an image of a road and a building and a field, because I know what exactly would lead me to the information, and another player, maybe a less experienced player who also knew the same information as me but just hadn't seen it as many times, would be kind of struggling to make out what the pixels mean. Like, for example, if there's a shadow and there's like it's kind of obscured by some leaves or something, like, yeah, it really is highly relevant, like what you're able to see in a short time in those game modes.
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of that probably pertains and draws back to, I guess, the prevalence of, I guess, continuous memory building, right? And I think there's a pretty famous memorization technique. I think it's called memory palace, whereby you're able to
Mhm.
sort of put things in your mind and sort of have different pinpoints. I guess for you, what was it like building up and training your memories to sort of take in so many key aspects or important things? Because there's so much going on in the world.
It's interesting. So I actually had exposure to memory palaces from a young age because my
Cool.
dad's into memory techniques.
Yeah.
I guess that, like, to listeners might not be such a surprise, but I actually don't really use too many memory techniques myself. I mean, I have mnemonics for certain things,
Yeah.
but yeah, like memory palaces, I would have to remember like texts that would make me remember stuff like that, and I would do it through memory palaces. So I did have exposure to that kind of thing. Coming into Geoguessr, repetition is the king, and
Mm.
so it's really interesting. So I tried to set up memory palaces for phone codes
Okay.
because phone codes are like so arbitrary, right? You have like three numbers, and a lot of times in certain countries, there's no pattern to the numbers, and you have to remember them. And I would try and place them, inside like a memory palace, like inside a house I'd been to or something like that. But then the thing would be, you'd place it, and maybe you'd remember the number, but then where does the number go on the map? So
Right.
it's another level of abstraction, which made it really hard to effectively use memory palaces, in my opinion. So instead, the new technique would be to, so for example, US area codes. I had a mnemonic and a kind of memory palace. You could call it's a kind of memory palace, I would say. So
Yeah.
the three numbers become a word, and so for example, A becomes 1, B
Yep.
becomes 2. Certain, obviously, there's more than 10 letters, so you need to like put multiple letters on some numbers. But for example, 212 is BAB,
Mm-hmm.
which is Manhattan, New York.
Crazy.
So the way I had to remember that is, okay, they cook a lot of kebabs. It's very multicultural in New York City and Manhattan. So BAB becomes kebab, and that's
Oh,
what they
I
do
like that.
downtown in Manhattan. It's But the thing is, you have to be able to place it. You have to be able to get the mental image and then place it onto the map. So in a way,
Yep.
the map becomes the memory palace.
Mm.
And that is obviously quite difficult because a map is not the same as like walking around a house. If you imagine a map in your mind, well, for me, I've spent so long looking at maps that actually is pretty detailed in my mind in a way that a building might be.
Yep.
The kind of visual memory aspect it's quite interesting to think about that because
Yeah.
it's not three-dimensional, so you don't. Well, it kind of is though with mountains and stuff, but it's not three-dimensional in a way that a house is, so it's not functioning the same way. But it is similar. So basically, I place it onto the map instead. It can be difficult. It's not as easy as a normal memory palace, I would say, and you have to remember 500 things for the US area code. So it's no joke. And to be honest, I don't like that was actually fun to learn just because it was a bit of fun. But I hate learning this information stuff. Like it just drives me crazy.
Yep.
Which is why I'm not a moving player.
I can
If
imagine.
I liked it, I would be.
there's
um,
there's so many
yeah.
countries to, I guess, to go through, and I guess, what is the best approach? Do you sort of break countries up and be like, okay, this day I'm going to focus on this country, maybe this week I'm going to do this region? What's the sort of approach towards, I guess, specific study?
I definitely think breaking it down by country is super strong because at some point, like you can just play the world map, but observing patterns, it's like you'd be observing patterns within patterns. Like
Right.
if you just narrow it down to one country, it's so much more easy to like solidify that knowledge. Where like if you're playing just the world map and you're thinking about all the different countries at once, one, you're going to see things less regularly. Two, whenever you see something, you're going to be like, wait, was this even this country? And then you're going to have other countries in your mind at the same time. So isolating down to one country is great,
Mm.
though I do mostly practice with the world map, admittedly. One of the great things to do with the countries thing is become an expert in one country and then kind of trade your knowledge with another person. So obviously
Oh.
in Australia, like I kind of got into the process. Like my first toe dipping into the pro scene was becoming one of the best players at Australia. Everything else, I was trash. But at Australia, at least I could, I was like a top 3 player in the world for Australia. So
Yeah.
me and my friends would like go for state streaks. We could see how many states in a row we'd get. And later on in my career, that became really useful because even if someone maybe didn't want to volunteer information for free, we could at least like trade a coaching session. I could get a coaching
Right.
session on some country I suck at, and then they could get something from me on Australia. That could at least be like a good reciprocal arrangement. So I think if you are listening to this and you want to get into GeoGuessr, pick a country that you don't see too many people are great at, become great at it. One, it teaches you the skills to do it for the rest of the world. But two, it also like just makes you a much more of an asset to like a potential team or just like someone who wants to trade information with you. But yeah, but to come back to your question, isolating down to one particular country is super useful, and there'll often be like guides and stuff like that, and that will be a great way to like just like really quickly level up in one country and gain an advantage over someone else like me, for example, who plays a lot of world map. I'm very consistent, but lacking in some countries, and that makes me exploitable, I think, in that way.
Yeah, no, fair play. When you say, and I guess you mentioned you sort of spam maps and I guess brute force that learning. What does that look like? Does that look like sitting down for an hour or two and playing 100 maps or like 200 maps and then just going on repeat? And I think the most important thing that I'm really interested in, especially in Rocket League and Counter Strike and stuff like that, post games, we have like reflection processes where we sort of reflect back and have a look. We might do some journaling about our performance and I guess what that meant. What do you do in regards to that? Do you sort of write down, like maybe on like a Google Docs, these countries I missed? What does that sort of process look like for
Oh gosh, I'm extremely unprofessional, Lachlan.
you?
Compared to you guys. Basically, so first thing, I'm like a super grinder. When I'm like a very single-minded person a lot of the time. If I'm playing a game, I'm playing a game.
Okay.
And so in the lead up to World Cup stuff, I've, been doing the long hours on many occasions, playing 8, 9, 10 hours a day, whatever.
Right. Okay.
And that will basically a lot of times just be me sitting there and playing and basically just spamming games the entire time.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
really even going back to look at anything, just playing. To the point, like it makes me very powerful in certain ways.
Yeah.
To the point where like I'll just see something and like other pro players will have to think longer, but I just know that what certain things look like, and it's just so second nature. It
Damn.
does make me extremely exploitable in other ways though, because just like I just don't um there's certain other ways of practicing. For example, some people will do mapping instead, where they'll look at certain places and work out exactly what makes it there, maybe by the Google car or something like that. So
Yeah.
I know a lot less about that kind of thing. And I guess what I want to say about that is like some people who spend more time mapping rather than playing, they'll pick two really far apart parts in Canada, right? And they'll say, what exactly makes this different? And like, okay, this one they captured during September, and this one they captured during, May. So the May stuff is going to have brighter green leaves because it's during the spring in the Northern Hemisphere, and this one is going to be, the September one is going to be more autumnal looking. And you just end up with like people who really have great ways to hard to distinguish areas,
Yeah.
where for me like that, like of course it's all relative. Like a lot of the stuff I'll just have like absorbed via osmosis, but
Mm.
for some specific stuff like that, they'll have a trick that will just help them never make that mistake. Whereas for me, where I was just spamming, yeah, I'll get it 9 out of 10 times, but the 1 out of 10 times, because I don't know the specific detail that actually gives it away, for example, that I had like a black Google car, or it was captured during September and, the other part was captured during May or something like that, that will sometimes come to screw me over. So I think I would definitely have benefited from practicing for years, where I would go back on my mistakes, where I would look, okay, what I'm losing, I'm playing like ranked ladder and I'm losing a huge amount of damage here. That's something to go and have a look at. And this is what the more mapping heavy players have an advantage in, I would say.
Yeah. How the hell do you not get burnt out, brother? Like, how does it? I guess playing for so long, does burnout ever occur or happen for you?
It's interesting. It's interesting. I was never burnt out until the end of the World League this year. So I played a ton. I played more Geoguessr basically than anyone on Earth.
Really?
That actually might be an exaggeration, but probably from when I quit my job until from the year after I quit my job, so like February or March 2024 till like March of this year, I probably played more Geoguessr than anyone. I just like, with maybe a couple of exceptions, but like I put on the maps like crazy, and I was just like playing so much. And the World League, we had to prepare every week to play on the weekend. Basically, there were no weeks off, and it was like a 20-week thing. It was kind of crazy.
Wow, that's kind of long. Yep.
Yeah, a long thing to have to prepare every single week for, especially because we're not getting paid much. Like it was
Right.
like $50 per win. Not a crazy amount for sure. So and just that experience of having to like be up to date, especially on the modes I don't like
Yeah.
every week, really kind of took a toll on my ability to enjoy the game as much. I think I came out of the league, and even though I was in a good position to qualify for the World Cup and had this LAN coming up, the regional LAN, I just started playing Counter-Strike and stopped playing quite as much,
Yeah.
and just kind of lost a little bit of joy from the grind.
Mm.
And I think that's continued through to now, where I'm kind of on a break. Now that I've failed to qualify, I'm kind of on a break. I'm just doing other stuff, focusing more on content, playing
Yep.
other games as well. And I think that's also just because the format is just so frustrating that it's kind of made me a little bit like jaded, and like just like kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with the format overall, because this is like for me. So the NMPZ, the still image mode, this is
Yep.
my main game mode. I don't want to be too hubristic. I could say conservatively, I'm top 10
Okay.
at NMPZ, but could be more like top 5 on a good week. Could be more like top 5, I think. Which definitely puts you in World Cup contention. Like the best NMPZ players in the world, I can take them on. I can beat them. That's definitely not unachievable for me.
Yeah.
But NMPZ in the developer made, because they're the tier, the developer made format puts NMPZ as basically like a tiebreaker,
Mm.
especially when it comes to like the big tournaments. It's game 5 out of 5, and most series don't go to game 5. For example, at the Asia Pacific regional we had, there was 0 NMPZ games, full stop.
Crazy.
And bear in mind, this is 95% of my practice.
Yeah.
so so like conservatively 95% of my practice is on this game mode that doesn't even get played. So that's actually been the biggest impediment. If the format was in my favor, I guarantee you, and I would go into the World Cup, which I would be realistically, because I only missed out by one spot and we never even played basically my favorite game mode.
Yeah.
Then I would be putting in the hard yard still, I know it, but it's just a more of a motivation thing based on external factors, I would say. I still love Geoguessr, and I still think I will grind in the future when the kind of the format more aligns to me. But yeah, that's kind of an interesting perspective, I guess. It's a different kind of burnout.
Yeah, no, interesting, because it's very common that I've had a lot of my pro players and players that I've coached and work with over the last 4 years that they have burnout primarily from ranked, they have burnout from comp, burnout from practice, that sort of stuff. Scrimming every night, and I guess not being able to have that work-life balance that's sort of optimal for them.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to sort of have that perspective on burnout, and I guess the burnout where you enjoy it so much but aren't able to really enjoy what you do enjoy, right? So I think that's a really interesting perspective. One thing that I'm curious about, and I guess when you're playing comp, when you're playing, when you're playing comp or you're playing at LAN, getting tilted, I think, is one thing that a lot of players sort of happen within esports, regardless of whatever you're doing. What's your, I guess, go-to, or how do you manage being tilted? Like, say, for example, when you guess Brazil and it's somewhere else, and it's not like the right guess.
Well, so it's interesting. So I was like a massive tilter when I would play other competitive games in my youth. I
Yeah.
would say
Okay.
I would rage, I would scream, whatever.
Mm.
Geoguessr is not a rage-inducing game. It's kind of more like chess. If you can imagine, like most chess players aren't going to suffer too much from tilt because it's pretty much all on you, and
Yeah.
you're not going to like the internet is not really going to be like an issue. Teammates are not going to be really an issue. So if you forget something and make a poor guess, it can be really frustrating for a moment, but I don't know, like, and you can have regret, but anger is not
Okay.
like as much of an emotion that I feel. I've seen people get tilted on GeoGuessr, but it's just not as much of a thing, I really have to say. Now,
Interesting.
during the World League, I did get massively tilted during one game only,
Okay.
and it honestly potentially cost me the World Cup like qualification because I was playing against Harrier, who in the world rankings after the World League ended, so there's still points on offer after the World League ended, but
Yeah.
basically you can just say I ended in 11th, he ended in 12th, so like near the kind of cutoff where we'd be safe to qualify for the World Cup, but not quite. And, I could have got extra points to be even higher had I, won this game. And basically, it came down to the final round, and he went the wrong continent. I got really close. He lost half of his health on round 1, which is like always sucks when someone goes the wrong continent on round 1, because if you know how it works, the multipliers build up, and it's like, well, could have just like, done that a few rounds later, and it would have been the game over.
Yeah.
Even 2 rounds later would have been guaranteed the game over, because it's doubled the damage.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I do that. I'm so far in the lead, and then there's a technical issue, and we have to reset. And we reset to full HP, even though there was no technical issue on this first round where I did a huge amount of damage to him. And at this point, I just got so angry at the developers for not having a contingency for this, because I was like, I thought it had been solved, to be honest. I just thought like this kind of thing had been like worked through.
Yeah.
And then from his perspective, I mean, he's also like maybe as well as me, one of the biggest grinders. So I didn't expect him to like do like a sportsmanship thing to like, agree to like have three, half the health or something based on what he should have had. I didn't expect that from him, because I know when someone's like putting in that much work, you take everything you can get, right? So, and he's also a friend of mine, so it was not like a personal thing, but I was like, it was just not fair. And then I was just like so tilted during the next one, and I just threw it, even though I'm much better than him at the still image format, which we were up to. So
yeah,
well, I don't want to say much better, but I should have the advantage. I should have won. I was winning, and it was just like that was a whole tilt thing. But I just think that just highlights that when tilt is often stuff that's outside of your control, and you feel like you were hard done by, and you just can't stop thinking about like, what the hell was that? Like, how have they allowed that to happen? Whatever.
Yeah.
I feel that like in Geoguessr, that's rarely the case, and so I rarely tilt.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can really feel for you there. I think reflecting back to whether it was Dallas or Germany World Championship a few years ago, very similar thing where we scored, and one of the other teams called that they were lagging, and so that the goal got reset. And that one goal led to that team actually capitalizing on the win, capitalizing on the series, and that was a big thing for us at the time, because at the time I was coaching in Japan, so in APAC. And we'd already set like I think 3 or 4 records for that LAN, so we were going for like the most records set on LAN.
Wow.
And I think that was a big thing that sort of looking at my players and reflecting back after the game, that tilt, and I think it starts to replay in your mind a bit in terms of things outside of your control. Was that something you experienced, whereby I guess it starts to replay in your mind? Maybe you're trying to go into bed, it's just like constantly something that's nagging away.
Geoguessr is like such this thing where like you always have regrets about how a game went down, because like I feel like because in Counter-Strike, for example, and I'm sure it's the same in Rocket League, there is no answer to a play. There's like especially in a team game, but there's so many different things you can do, and yet what ends up happening and the way it goes down, a guy can check his back. Like a guy can check the flank a certain timing, and it just completely changes the round, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in Geoguessr, like there is a correct answer. It makes things completely different, and also normally when there's a correct answer, you thought of it at least. Like as a pro player, even if you didn't get there, you at least were considering it.
Yeah.
And so then you have to be really honest with yourself. Like, was I really going to go there? Like, what really like caused me to not go there, and that kind of thing. And that can be very, like, as I said, Geoguessr is not tilting, but the regrets are huge in the game. Compared to like Counter-Strike, it's like, okay, well, like, I could have checked the flank at that next moment, but like, the timing might not have lined up, and I might have just died anyway, or, like, who knows what could have happened. Like, someone could have got super sharp for the rest of the round and clutched it anyway. Like, you just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many intangibles and so many multivariable like things going on.
Yeah.
It's just not the same in Geoguessr, and so it really just puts so much on you. And yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of that, like just staying up at night thinking about it around. But in terms of like during the game, something just like constantly being on your mind. I mean, the time I was tilted because of the reset, that was just like I just couldn't stop thinking about how annoyed I was. Like I was not thinking about the round properly, and I made like a pretty elementary blunder in that game, and it just pissed me off. But I think, but there's definitely that element where it's like, wow, like, there is a correct answer, and it just really changes the dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I'm curious about is, I guess, what would happen in the domain for you, for example, is if you played round 1 and then you were able to have like, I guess, a couple minutes break and have like whether it be a coach or another player, like a friend or someone like that, to have a bit of a one-on-one and be able to have that, I guess, mental reset. Because do you really have that option to sort of have an opportunity to talk to someone in between games, or is it just
You didn't.
primarily just you?
Yeah. You didn't during the World League or at LANs, to be honest. There was never like really an option for that or anything.
Mm,
I think that could be really quite good. The thing is, like, I'm just trying to think, like in other games, you're talking tactics in like a coach break, right? You might be
yeah.
talking mentality, and that's what would be more applicable to Geoguessr. But
Hmm.
as we, kind of touched on before, the tactics side of things in Geoguessr is kind of non-existent. I
Mm,
mean, the biggest way, so tactics exists in moving.
yep.
Moving mode has tactics, I will say that. Decision making about when you guess, because for those unfamiliar, the round lasts 60 seconds, but as soon as you guess, your opponent has 15 seconds. So you can choose to lock in early and therefore put the time pressure on your opponent. And this like time pressure mechanic, I wish there were more mechanics like that because it
Yep.
actually does add tactics. Now, what they could do is like maybe add like a map veto, have like certain maps that are more urban, more rural, more, more of big countries, more of small countries, whatever. That way you could I could say like, get more tactics, maybe like, could have like a coach break, like discuss, that kind of thing. But
Yep.
just like I do think the role of a coach in Geoguessr would be so much more on the psychological side of things, on the keeping someone calm
Yep.
side of things, than what you might discuss if you have a tactical timeout in CS or something.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love that. It's definitely pretty prevalent, especially in Rocket League. Like in a best of seven series, we might go 0-2 down and we get the opportunity to call a timeout once per series.
Yeah.
And predominantly for that, like with my players, we do like visualization, box breathing, stuff like that to really reset the mental and then I guess re-establish confidence towards the next game and then really build that up from the ground up again. So I think something like that, being able to have a full mental reset to then really lock in and focus on the next few games, I think would be pretty important.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this also goes back to the fact that GeoGuessr is like a less professional esport in many ways.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want to. I'm not like putting us down as a scene or anything. I think the talent in GeoGuessr is huge, and it's a very cool esport. But it's just there's less. I would say there's less focus on like competitive integrity and getting the most out of the players and stuff like that.
All
And
right.
there's more focus on just like the show,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Mm.
Interesting. One thing I'm curious about is, I guess, from previously being on a few both my orgs, head of performance, so working with players one on one to look at sleep, to look at exercise, to look at supplementation, nutrition, all that sort of stuff. I guess how important does that play in? Are they factors you take into consideration going to land, traveling overseas, sort of understanding, exercise, sleep, nutrition, that sort of stuff? Does that play into a factor at all? Is it primarily just let's get as much reps in, let's just grind the maps, let's go over the study, and let's just get as much experience in prior to competing?
Yeah, they're definitely considerations for me for sure. Um, Number one, I think would be sleep to mention, just because like in GeoGuessr, you have to bring things to the front of your mind and
Yeah.
be lucid completely, and just like memorize and like and bring to mind so many different things. So,
Mm,
um, obviously, several nights of poor sleep in a row will really uh be like pretty disastrous when it comes to that, and especially when you're traveling for these tournaments. I've always felt as an Australian I am at a bit of a disadvantage in that regard
oh,
for
I feel you,
sure.
brother. I feel you.
Yeah. I think every Aussie kind of who lives in Australia and goes out to lands would definitely understand that, and have felt that at various times. Um, in addition, on a personal note, like I'm just like a really super night owl. Like I
Mm,
basically just never feel like going to sleep. It's not like I'm an insomniac or anything. I can when I go to sleep, I can sleep. I just
yeah.
never feel like going to sleep, kind of
Right.
thing. So that creates issues for me, and it's often like I'm also a bit of a procrastinator when I'm making content and stuff. I'll often like wait till right before I go to bed to film it. So you end up in the I end up in this situation where like I've stayed up too late to film stuff in the week leading up to go into a tournament. Sleep schedule is already messed up before, and I'm like super low before I leave to the tournament because I've been working on content stuff as well.
Yeah.
I get there, even if I get a couple of good 7-8 hour nights of sleep, it's often just like things have been too bad before that like I kind of end up not being on my A game.
Yeah.
As for like exercise and nutrition, I'm not super like I gym like 3-4 times a week. I
Nice.
think that is good for like staying keeping the mental good. I think that's quite important.
Yeah.
And nutrition, I'm less like knowledgeable and enthusiastic about, but I don't know. I definitely think it's something if I really wanted to get to the top, I think I would look more at that, trying to eat cleaner and a better diet in conjunction with going to the gym and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's something I do put some thought towards, but I know that could be much more optimized than I have it right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's a very similar mindset a lot of pro players have across many esports. And it's, I guess, this combined mindset that I've got to the top because of what I've done previously. So why would I do something different? And I think
Sure.
that
Yep.
mindset of adopting something new causes ambivalence with a lot of
hmm
players. And just that
hmm
thought of, oh, if I do that, is that going to start completely throwing me off my game?
Yeah.
Whereas actively looking at that as the 1 to 2% that could actually make a difference.
I heard recently that Zonic, who's the coach of the Falcons team for Counter-Strike,
Yeah.
was getting Munacy, no, it was the sports psychologist, I think,
Yeah.
was trying to get Munacy, their AWPer, to get up earlier because he's like kind of a late night grinder. And obviously they famously just bombed out of the most recent major.
Yeah.
And so people are like, oh, what were they thinking? Like they're trying to like get their star guy to like change up his whole schedule.
Yeah.
These kind of decisions can be difficult.
They
I'm
can be.
like so much of a night owl that I think that would also actually be quite bad for me. Even when I was working 8 to 4 in the year before I started content full time,
Yeah.
I was so tired at work, and like it just didn't matter. Like even if I got a good night's sleep, the first like 4 hours of my work day was such a write off. I was just so bad during that time. So
Yeah.
like yeah, I guess that is like a valid concern from the players who say that, I think. But at the same time, there is some truth that like my current sleep schedule is not ideal for professional performance, I think.
Yeah, I think you got to find the balance between optimization and being able to, I guess, stay true to yourself. So, and it's a
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
balance to find sometimes.
Can be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You'd know more about that than me though, yeah.
Before we jump into the content creation side, there was one thing that you mentioned earlier, which was, I guess, putting the pressure on opponents. And I love this conversation because, playing some Geoguessr with some mates, we don't know the country. Boom, let's just put the pressure on them. Let's just actively lock in, pull an Oni pixel, and just send it whatever country, right?
It could be India.
Yeah, it could be India. How valid of a strategy is that, especially when you don't know, you're not clueless. Maybe you've only got a few hundred heat points left. How valid of a strategy is it to actually just be like, all right, I'm just going to send it and just put it on something that you're not too sure?
Yeah, so as I said, it's highly tactical in the moving game mode, especially because basically every single person in the World League knew more information clues than I did. So basically that means they're learning the different regencies in Indonesia, they're learning the different phone codes in France, they're learning all these different things which they're likely to find on a sign. So
Yeah.
for me, the decision about whether to insta send or not is huge, basically, because as soon as I load into a round, I'm immediately like, okay, what do I reckon's down the road? What do I think they're going to be able to get within the time that I have?
Right.
What do I reckon I'm going to get within that time?
Yeah.
It's a huge decision, especially on moving. Now, on the other two modes, it's much more of a subtle decision.
Yeah.
You're both working with the same information set, and it's all about, is this going to be difficult for them, and how much are they going to get from thinking through the whole 60 seconds. At World Cup 24, this completely backfired on me because me and the Brazilian player Orlando, who by the way is the only player signed to an org so far, he's signed to Imperial.
Right.
We both failed to qualify for this World Cup though, but we were at the previous one, and we had each other. I was already 1-0 up at the tournament so far, so I was in a really strong position. If I won this game, I would have been like almost locked for the stage at that point.
Yeah.
And we come through to NMPZ, my speciality, his weakest mode by far. The first round, It's maximum south in Argentina, Ushuaia, if anyone knows that city, right down there near Ushuaia, and quite famous because it's like the biggest city near Antarctica.
Right.
And he completely missed it. He blundered hugely, goes Russia on it. I basically get the max win. I basically, in any other round of the entire duel, it would have been instantly over. But because it was round number one, he loses 5,000 points. He's still got 1,000 in reserve. Everyone has 6,000. So basically, I have him down on the ropes.
Yeah.
The next round, I'm thinking this guy, like, not to put too fine a point. I'm thinking this guy sucks at NPZ. Like on the still image, I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah.
So basically, I just instantly lock in the next round. Like it's with you can go back and watch the replay. It's like within 4 seconds. I have 60 seconds. I lock in within 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And as soon as I locked in, I was like, that might not be that good. But at the same time, I thought I was chilling. Like I was like, even if I'm wrong, I'm still in.
Yeah.
He ends up getting super close, and because it was like a very suboptimal guess from me, he actually ends up with the multiplier on the damage, round number 2, knocking me out.
Reverse sweep.
And
Yeah.
that is like, well, people were angry about that because if you watch the game, it just makes no sense that he would win this one. I mean, objectively speaking, as well as subjectively speaking, it's kind of silly that he would win it. I've no ill will against him. He's a good friend of mine. I think even he would admit that was just pretty lucky on his end. But that was an example of the Instalock tactic absolutely backfiring. I'm sure if I thought about it longer, I would have ended up with the correct answer. And it was like a little bit of like hubris, and it was a little bit of, I don't know, just like poor tactics there. It's an interesting one to go back and look at from my perspective, but the tactics are definitely there, more so in the moving, because that's where there's so much more decision making.
Yeah. Interesting. I think it's really interesting that there's a little bit of different strategy towards different game modes, which I think you don't really see too often in other games. Yeah.
Well, I think it's just because also like moving is so different to the other two game modes. Like I can't really stress this enough, but like finding a sign that says the regency within Indonesia, there's like 500 regencies. Everyone memorizes them apart from me because they basically tell you exactly where you are, but they don't show up on the map, so you have to actually know where they are. And yeah, so people find those, they get super close, right? It's so different to like loading into a round and seeing like, okay, the soil's kind of red. We've got some rubber tree plantations. We've got a little bit of elevation, whatever. Like we have like this kind of architecture. That is you're dealing with two different games at that stage. One's like a memorizing the place, and one is like synthesizing a bunch of minor factors that come together to create a location, and one is basically like point and click adventure. One is you know what I mean, like the other one is like a much more sophisticated guess. But as I said, there's tactics that go into the moving, but it's just so different, right? The tactics in the first one are one, like finding where you're going to get the information. Two, making sure you've got that memorization on lock. And three, making sure you look around afterwards and just confirm that, okay, it does actually look like that. The other game mode, obviously, it's just all about the vibes. It's all about, the information synthesization, which is much more subtle and much more, experience based.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what you say, that the tactics being and the game modes being so different, it's because they are just like so there's just there's not much crossover there, in my opinion, actually, between these game modes, which is why I suck so bad at one and I'm so good at the other. Yeah.
Are you hoping that potentially in the future there'll be an NMPZ only LAN or an NMPZ only event where that's the only game mode you play?
I'm definitely hoping for that. I've heard whispers that it might happen. I mean, everyone's always like kind of. Apparently, the chess community got so much happier when Classical and Blitz got their own like grandmasters and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the way it works.
Yeah.
Or at least their own tournaments and stuff. That is the end goal for someone like me who has no interest in playing moving. Yeah. I think the World Cup. I think it makes sense to make the World Cup all three game modes, by the way, because that is like kind of world champion should be someone who can play them all. I can admit that, but yeah, as for me, my heart's in one place. Yeah.
NMPZ forever.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that'd be interesting to sort of, have an individual who's really, truly dedicated to one specific category being able to put that at the test, especially for NMPZ if it's only played towards the end, if it's only like a match 5 sort of thing. And you don't really get experience that, like especially what happened in the APAC calls, like being able to have an event catered towards that, I think would be pretty cool.
Yes, agreed.
Awesome. Now, I'd love to sort of pivot towards content creation because I think it's a big one and I get a lot of questions about it from a content creation perspective towards, I guess, building out and wanting to grow. And I think the biggest thing that I have is, I guess, people putting out content, but then being scared of like, oh, someone's being a bit negative, someone's like having a go at me, and then I guess losing confidence in themselves to want to continue posting, and I guess trying to find the joy in creating content for each other. So I guess, did you ever experience that at the start, or is that something you've sort of had over time, where you've just sort of molded or ignored like
Hmm.
comments?
I think especially back in the early days when I was making Geoguessr videos, it was like such like a mature audience. Like I
Right.
feel like the type of person who seeks out Geoguessr videos, especially from like a small creator who's making fairly like my early videos do not appeal to a wide audience, I would say. Let's
Pretty
just say
niche.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty niche, pretty nerdy stuff. So I feel like the average person quite educated, quite, quite a bit older. And so more likely to just like kind of leave a kind comment than a mean one, I would say. It's
Yeah.
just the kind of the way things work. And so I feel like the early days I basically never received a hate comment. Maybe some people would say my voice was annoying or the kind of things you just run into like if you make videos, but nothing crazy. So I think like when I would watch when I was younger, I would I was like invested in like YouTube drama stuff, and I would watch like a bunch of videos like about that, and it's when you're a kid, like these things are kind of entertaining. But like
Yeah.
always, YouTubers would say like, oh, the hate comments, like I can read 100 nice ones, one bad one, it gets to me. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about it all
Yeah.
day, and I was like, toughen up, princess. That's ridiculous. But as it happens, that's actually a true thing. Like,
Yeah.
and I think if you actually like are critical about it, it makes sense, right? Your evolutionary drive to not get kicked out of the tribe, right?
Mm.
Because that's basically death out in the wild in
Yeah.
in like pre civilizational, human experience. If the tribe kicks you out, then that's kind of it. And a negative comment sets off that part of the brain because it's like, okay, people don't like me. Why people don't like me? They want me gone, or like obviously it's not that deep, but
Yeah.
it's just hard not to think that way. So I would say like that you come to that realization pretty quickly if you're like if you're reading all your comments, which I do. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
I have empathy for people who go through a lot of hate or something like that because that would be pretty bad, pretty horrible.
Yeah, I think it's tricky to sort of find that balance, I guess, between reading comments and wanting to, I guess, especially starting out nowadays, right, where there's so much competition, trying to differentiate yourself and maybe try and be a little bit different towards the normal crowd and stand out.
Hmm. Hmm.
That can often potentially look at being getting a bit flacked because you're trying to stand out, you're trying to do your own thing. But I
Yeah,
think it's
I agree.
important to, enjoy that journey and wanting to create content that you would enjoy. I think
Yeah.
that's probably one of the biggest things that I have advice for, is in making content that you would enjoy and I guess finding movement into. I think I've talked to a lot of pros in the past, especially with pros who have gone from playing pro careers and then wanting to go into like something like Twitch streaming, right? And they
Okay.
just haven't found joy in like Twitch streaming. It's more of a job. It's a chore.
Hmm.
I've got to hit stream for 2.5 hours, and I think finding that as a more of a minute mentality in terms of, oh, it's not something I want to do, but I sort of have to force myself to do it. It becomes a lot less enjoyable over time.
Yeah, and for me, just on that, which is kind of unrelated, but I just don't really enjoy Twitch streaming that much. I think YouTube is way more fun.
Yeah.
You get like a contained idea. You get to be much more creative. Twitch, I think Twitch streaming can fill the same role. So
Right.
if I was to quit YouTube, then I have ideas of what I would do on Twitch, and I could easily make that my creative outlet. But
Yeah.
at least as it is, I've just always enjoyed the YouTube way of expressing myself much more. So Twitch is just for training for me, and YouTube is where the fun is at, in my opinion.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. How deep do you get into something like analytics? Because I think that's a few things that I've talked about with some previous content creators whereby they're constantly looking at analytics, they're constantly stressing about, I've got to try and create content a little bit more targeted towards this micro niche and trying to change the content around.
I'm not so interestingly. When I started getting my analytics at the start of my channel, I would check it all the time.
Yeah,
Because I've always been someone who loves stats and stuff like that. So
naturally.
it's just like, yeah, it's just something I naturally wanted to check a lot. And ever since I've like had success, quote unquote, depending on how you want to define that, but ever since like I've been making a living wage, I guess you could say, on YouTube, ironically, I just check it less. I'm just like less interested. I guess also it kind of coincides with the pro stuff as well. Like I've had multiple things on my plate, and so I've had less like need to check the analytics. Um, Also, you don't want to let it dictate your life. It's natural that if you made more money on YouTube in a certain week, that you're going to feel a bit happier or a bit sadder if you haven't.
Yeah.
But you don't want to let it dictate your life. That's not where you want to get your worth from. So I just try and not be looking at it too much. But interestingly enough, my dad is really interested, so he'll often ask like, "Oh, what did you make on YouTube this week?" I'll like show him as well. So that's often I won't even know until I show him.
I love that. It's good. It's good to have
Yeah.
parental input as well, because I think,
Oh yeah.
especially within content creation, especially pro players, like I've spoken to both sides of the parallel where parents are involved and parents are not too involved, and there's that bit of a
Yeah.
separation between actively being motivated to continue what you're doing versus, oh, should I be doing this? And I guess having that lingering pressure in the background. So I think that's a very interesting, I guess, comparative sort of example.
Yeah. Well, my parents are pretty supportive of the whole thing. They're not interested in the game at all, but they definitely enjoy, watching, an odd video here or there, or watching me when I'm playing in the tournaments, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love
Like,
that.
they're happy when I, have a video that pops off or something like that for sure.
Yeah, mad. I remember the first time I qualified for Sweden and I told my parents and they're like,
Mm.
"Are you sure that's not a scam? Are you sure you haven't been like baited into something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's
Yeah,
legit.
yeah,
It's all
yeah,
legit.
yeah,
Got to start, getting a new suitcase, that sort of stuff." So,
yeah,
yeah, it's funny. There's sometimes that bit of a disconnect, but getting them involved and then I guess getting them to follow it on, it's definitely a good journey to be a part of for
yeah.
sure.
100%, 100%.
Now, I guess as we sort of turn off the engine and roll down the hill towards the end of the episode, we've got a few rapid fire questions
Sure,
for some fans on Reddit that have sort of come through and posted a few things.
sure.
Um, the biggest one that stood out, and I think I probably already know, do you think that you're more introverted or extroverted in terms of, I guess, your approach towards conversation, being more social, being more bubbly?
Yeah, I've always considered myself a bit more of an extrovert, but I would say like I'm not one that's all the way either end. So I definitely like need some time to wind down after, being in a big social setting at the end of the day. But I would identify more as an extrovert for sure.
Love that. Fantastic. I was just thinking of something that's not really a rapid fire question, but something I thought was really interesting. I think I remember I saw a vlog or something that you did that you were traveling around Europe or something. Is it common for Geoguessr players to travel IRL, to go to different places and actually get insights in terms of meta, look at signs, that sort of stuff, and actually have a bit more of a IRL experience towards information?
Yeah, so I think how I mentioned right at the start that there's some people who are just already geographical nerds and that's why they play GeoGuessr, and then you have the people who aren't so much. I think if you look at the people who already were geographical nerds, GeoGuessr just even ignites more of a love for travel, and they're going on trips all the time. And oh man, my GeoGuessr friends visit some crazy and cool places.
Yeah,
Kazakhstan, Morocco. They're going all these different like
crazy.
super cool countries. Um, so yeah, I definitely think like if you're someone like me, geographically interested already, GeoGuessr just lit that fire under my bum. I've gone and visited some great places already. This year after the World Cup, I'm visiting Georgia and Armenia in the
Wow,
Caucasus Mountains.
that'll be mad.
It's gonna be insane. So and definitely changed the way I travel as well. For example, I love hiring cars now because then
Nice.
you can go off to the side streets. You can get, and obviously street view. It's all about streets. If you're going by train or if you're going, I don't know, if you're, I don't know, guys, train would be the main other way. If you're training or flying, then you don't get to see as much
Yeah.
from the street. But I love that. I love that hiring a car, staying in smaller towns, getting B&Bs just off the beaten track. That's so fun.
That's the life. That's the dream, isn't it? Love
Definitely,
that.
like it's so cool.
What is your favorite country that's currently not in GeoGuessr? Because there's not every single country in the world that has footage, right? That's in GeoGuessr.
Favorite country. That leaves some room open for interpretation for sure.
Yeah.
Like the country I want the most is China, but that's everyone's answer because it's too obvious. Like it's the biggest country, the biggest population, like of the ones that don't have Street View yet. And it's got so much culture, so much diversity, like almost every single biome. Like you really can't go past China. That is number one.
Mm,
Now favorite country. That's maybe more interesting. I could say like maybe Ethiopia would be a country I would love to see get out of that. I'm also super interested in
interesting.
like the culture in Ethiopia. I think it's like it's not like anything we have at the moment. Um, Maybe like somewhat similar to Kenya, but that's something I would love to see get added for sure.
Yeah. I think China would be crazy because it's so big as well. It'd be
You can actually
hectic.
try it. Like
Oh, really?
there are like China has their own Street View, and so the
Right.
Chinese community has made mods where you can play kind of a GeoGuessr kind of clone in China. It's pretty fun. Yeah, it works. It works pretty nicely. You can like get a vibe for it. I think it's really difficult. I think it's
Yeah.
like because there's so many mountains and like you're always just in the hills in the south of the country. It's becomes very challenging.
Crazy. Yeah, absolutely. I think sort of reflecting back on, I guess, my favorite country probably would be Japan. I love getting Japan. Obviously, I've got the Japan map behind me.
Yeah.
I think I've been to Japan like 6 times now already. So definitely pretty experienced traveling in Japan. So I think, yeah, Japan,
That's very
having
cool.
a Japan map, it's like, yep, Japan, Instalocker boys, let's go.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is
yeah.
good.
Japan is a lot of fun, and they have so much like infrastructure stuff where
Yeah.
they're just like going crazy on the different regional. You know, they have the different regions. They have all kinds of different stuff. So it's a lot of fun for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
great country.
Love that. How many languages have you learnt or tried to learn, I guess, to help, I guess, influence GeoGuessr skills?
So in terms of learning a language, obviously knowing the word for river, the word for district, the word for street,
Mm,
like they're all useful words to know. So it can be really useful to learn a language, but like everyday conversational skills aren't going to help you too much. So I can speak German as well as English,
right.
which can lead to like some advantages, but they're mostly quite minimal. And then I've learnt to read the Cyrillic script. So for Russia, Ukraine, all those countries,
Yep.
that's basically essential. You have to do that. Even for someone like me who doesn't like reading too much,
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, you just got to be realistic. Like you have to be able to read that. And then there's other ones that other people learn, which I haven't: Hindi, Bengali, Thai, um, some of the Japanese kanjis for the prefectures.
Hmm.
What else? I mean, these are the ones that you gotta know, and you've also got to know in every European language the name for street, which I can pretty much say for every country on GeoGuessr in Europe. I can pretty much say how they say road or street. So that
Interesting.
that is like yeah, super essential knowledge I would say as well. But
Yeah.
language beyond that, like depends. If you play moving, it's very useful. If you don't, then not too much.
Yeah. Love that. I actually had, funny you mentioned, I had one listener reach out, and the question they had was, why does Isaac Oscar know so much German? Like, where does that come from?
My family has some German background. At high school, it was one of the languages offered, so I did German instead of Indonesian.
Nice.
Got to university, I was doing an arts degree. Often you pair that with a language minor anyway, so I just continued on with German. I did German exchange in high school as well, so it all just like led to me continuing. And I've always had an aptitude for languages anyway, so kind of a similar skill to like learning GeoGuessr. It's kind of pattern based, but also just rote memorization. Two things I'm fairly good at, and yeah, I've just enjoyed learning a language. Now, I kind of wish it was a different language to be honest, because
Really?
German, like for travel, just doesn't really unlock anything.
Mm,
Whereas like French, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, they unlock so much more.
yeah.
But hey, I mean, like I still really love the German culture, German people speaking German, so why not? It's still great.
Yeah, no, I love that. Exact same path as me actually, but with Japanese.
Hmm?
Did it in
Okay.
high school, did it at
Yeah.
uni, paired it with my
Yeah.
sports science degree. So
Yeah. Cool. Cool.
that was awesome. But yeah,
Mm. Have you ever
uh,
considered like doing something in Japan, like a sports psychology job in Japan?
I always wanted to work, and I worked previously a little bit here in Melbourne at the Melbourne Rebels doing like rugby.
Yeah,
And there was an opportunity for me to go over to Japan to do S&C, strength and conditioning, with some rugby players in Japan,
yeah,
which was
yeah,
awesome. But
yeah.
that opportunity coincided with a world championship. So
Yeah,
it was
unfortunate.
tricky, and it's like not every day a world championship rolls around.
Yeah,
And it's obviously a pretty exciting thing as well. So hopefully we
yeah,
get another opportunity to do that. But
yeah,
yeah, something I'd love to do for sure.
yeah. Nice, very cool.
Do you think here's one for you? I guess say for example at the start of a round, if you could ban a map,
Mm.
do you think, or ban a country? Do you think that would be a pretty interesting little thing, or like almost like having like a power up to sort of give you something? And if you could ban a country, what would you ban?
Fantastic question. I do think that would be good because
Yeah.
at the moment the tactics are quite minimal, as we discussed.
No.
This could actually bring a lot more into the game. It also depends whether it's moving, no moving, whatever. So,
Mm.
for example, if we were playing a moving game and I was against someone who's good at information, then it would be an easy choice to ban Indonesia because Indonesia, they just write too much stuff down and
Yeah.
too much that I don't know. Even though I tried to learn it, but like still, it's just too risky to leave Indonesia in there. So what you'd have to do is, have a ban, um, for the country, but just for one jewel. That would be the only viable way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
So then you can have Indonesia back for the next games. I think this is a good idea. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I also think that just in general they should add, if they want to keep all three game modes in one tournament, there should be a pick ban. Um, for the best of, well, not really, more like a pick instead of a pick ban
Yeah.
for the
That'd be cool.
for the best of threes, which is like the normal format before you get to playoffs. Should be person A picks their favorite game mode, person B picks their favorite game mode, leftover is the third one. And then for best of five, it should be like um moving, no moving NMPZ that can stay as it is, and then should be like um or it should be pick moving NM NMPZ, or it should go moving NM NMPZ. Then the fourth one, the losing player picks if it goes to that,
Yeah.
and then the fifth one, the winning player, whoever the person who's winning after the first three picks.
Yeah.
I've heard that suggested as well. I think that's also good. So basically, there needs to be something to get NMPZ more played, which, yeah, if they have said they treat it as a penalty shootout, which I fully disagree with that characterization, but um if they're gonna change their tune on that, then that would probably be the way to go about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I think having a variety, because the first time Gamers 8 was held, they had Rocket League and it was crew battle. So obviously Rocket League's always been 3v3, but now all of a
Yeah.
sudden they had 2v2 and 1v1 mixed into the
Mm,
equation, and you
okay.
could pick and ban what gamer would you would play. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
having that would definitely create some variety.
Definitely. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Two to go.
Hmm.
Favorite country that you've traveled to and most exotic place as well, sort of combination question.
My favorite country. So I have a top three. I have a defined top three countries that I've traveled to,
Yeah.
but within that, it's kind of even. I would say Slovenia is probably my favorite country I've ever traveled to.
Really?
Number two, probably Japan, and number three, probably Bosnia. They're my
Bosnia.
three favorites. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess like in terms of like a hidden gem that I've traveled to in those three countries, probably Travnik in Bosnia.
Okay.
Very beautiful city. We were recommended about that by another YouTuber who mentioned that he'd visited there just before he went. We're like, okay, we're adding it to the itinerary. That was super beautiful. Not a tourist in sight. Also, kind of a place where it feels like you step back in time.
Okay.
Everyone's kind of dressed traditionally, and they're just walking on the street. It's like it's a completely different vibe over there inside central Bosnia. Like, everyone's reading the paper, listening to the radio out loud. So many people on the street, like in the middle of the day, when in Australia, like go outside here, there's no one. I guarantee. It's like it's just it's a completely different feeling.
Yeah, love that.
Mm,
Interesting. Nah, cool.
mm,
That's awesome.
mm.
I wouldn't have picked Bosnia. I really like the flag. It comes up.
Yeah, it's a great flag.
I've started doing flashcards on my phone. So
Oh,
I've got
cool.
like
Nice,
25
nice, nice.
flashcards that get hit with randomly. So I'm getting all the flags down.
Good
And
stuff. Good
Bosnia
stuff.
comes up. It's mad.
And
Um,
Bosnia's coming to Street View soon as well.
is
It's
it?
not out yet. Yeah,
Okay, that'll be good. That'll be interesting to sort of have a look around there.
indeed.
I guess as a final sort of wrap up note for any people out there listening, especially those looking to get into GeoGuessr, try and get into, I guess, comp modes. What advice would you have for some of those younger players looking to maybe like start to hone in their geography skills? Where do you reckon you'd start?
I mean, man, the great thing about GeoGuessr learning is there's so many different ways you can do it, and I feel like the same in many games, but
Yeah.
you should vary it up, I think. Practice with people who are better than you. If you can find someone who's better than you to practice, it obviously can't always happen like that, because otherwise no one would have anyone to practice with if there always has to be someone better than them.
Yeah.
But if you can do that, that would be great. Maybe find a friend to grind with you. Number two, read all the Plunkett guides, internalize everything inside Plunkett.net's guides, because they're very, very good. Like it's a fantastic resource.
Yeah.
Number three, be watching YouTube videos like mine, like other people's. Just make sure you're like consuming stuff from pro players and stuff like that. There's plenty of options. Diono, Finbar, MK, like a lot of people who kind of like make videos from pro perspective and stuff like that. Tune into Twitch as well. Lots of well, I mean these days maybe less so, but there's often good players streaming, especially if you're lower level. Play as much as you can, and then also just like find out what you really enjoy, and maybe focus on that. And to harken back to what we said earlier, for an eighth tip, I guess we're up to now, would be focus on a country as well. Pick a country, maybe your own country, or maybe a country that you're interested in. Get really good at that, and kind of get to a pro level on that country, so that at least you can compete with someone like me on that country. And that way you kind of have an idea of what it takes to get to that level in the other countries as well, which really helped me starting out. So yeah.
Legendary. All tips that I will employ. So I hope people listening,
Surely.
you'll do the same. You'll do the same.
Yeah, surely. Nice.
Legendary. For everyone listening, where can we find you on socials? Where can we reach out to you? Watch the content? Where can we get involved? I'll put it all in the description as well, Bart.
Yep, so my YouTube channel is zi8gzag, zi8gzag. It's got a silent 8 in there between the I and the G, you already know. So that's my YouTube, that's my main platform. Instagram, zi8gzag, spelled the same way, YT, as in YouTube at the end. And Twitch is also just zi8gzag, so that's probably the main three where you'll get anything from me. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess.
Legendary. Yeah, awesome. I'll put everything else in the description as well, and the website as well, to make sure that everyone can watch the content, get around it. But yeah, Oscar, really appreciate the insights that you've brought to so many listeners, and I guess myself as well, stuff I'm going to employ. Especially, I guess, understanding the mind of a Geoguessr player. It's very different towards other games, especially team setting based games. So really having, I guess, an individualized mindset, and I guess how you attack things, and I guess how you practice, how you study, and your mindset towards different things is such a crucial insight into that. So I really appreciate coming on and sharing those experiences, and I'm sure lots of people will really enjoy it as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Legendary. Thanks, mate.